Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. This hour, Michigan has a deer population problem, and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources has announced new regulations to try and address it. But hunters are divided over the rule changes. We'll find out why the one-buck rule is so controversial. Also, the state of Michigan has reported a decline in overdose deaths since 2024, and the numbers continue to trend down. Yet, it's becoming harder to prevent people from using in the first place. Later this hour, we'll hear from Wayne County's medical officer who says the work is not over. But we'll start in Oakland County, where overdose deaths went down 37% in just 1 year. A lot of that is attributed to Narcan, also known as naloxone. The county says it distributed 2,300 Narcan kits in recent years, resulting in 430 overdose rescues. Although numbers are trending down, education, Narcan availability, and peer recovery groups remain a top priority for local organizations like the Alliance for a Coalition of Healthy Communities. The organization is planning a drive-up naloxone training resource fair in Troy on August 31st. Jonathan Maxgay is an overdose prevention specialist with the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. I spoke with him about identifying when someone needs Narcan, how to administer it, and how he's personally been impacted by substance abuse. We begin the conversation talking about the 25th International Overdose Awareness Day, which is next week.
Yeah, so the International Overdose Awareness Day has been around for quite some time. It's definitely an issue that we're facing here in Metro Detroit, and we have been for some time. And at the Alliance, we're very grateful to be able to hand out naloxone, the life-saving medication, to help prevent overdose.
And what do the numbers say about overdoses and overdose deaths, especially in Michigan and Southeast Michigan right now?
Yeah, so overdoses have been climbing nationally for some time. They peaked about in 2022. We lost over 110,000 Americans to a drug overdose in that year. And they've been falling since then. Specifically in Michigan, we've had a 47% decrease in overdose deaths since 2021, which is fantastic. The state and the county credit that a lot to naloxone distribution, to education.
Now, when I think about naloxone and I think about just how available it is now, would you consider it something that should be a part of everyone's medicine cabinets now?
Absolutely. If it was up to me, we would mail naloxone to every family in the United States. In Oakland County, the Alliance hosts 105 Save Life stations, so they're free newspaper-style dispensers for naloxone, and they're all over the county. And I'm just so grateful to be in a position to be able to distribute.
And just hearing you say that, I don't think we understand the capacity of it being a life-saving drug until you actually understand it a little bit more and understand overdoses a little bit more. So when you are, training folks and educating folks, how do you describe or explain to them what an overdose actually looks like?
So when a person ingests an opioid, it's processed by their body, it gets into their blood, and the blood takes it up into their brains. And in all of our brains, we have receptors. For opioids, we have the opioid receptor. Now, when too many of those receptors have opioids on them, it stops the signals from the brain that tells the lungs to breathe. So an opioid overdose looks very similar to an asphyxiation, a drowning. You're going to see folks start turning blue in the thin-skinned areas, places like the lips and underneath the fingernails. You might see paraphernalia around. You might see powder on their face. But it can be hard to identify, absolutely.
In recent news that actually, made me sad, actor Hayden Panettiere passed away from an apparent overdose. It was reported that Narcan was found on the scene. When you see or hear stories like Hayden's story, for example, what goes through your mind?
Well, my thoughts go to the Panettiere family. Every single overdose death that I see breaks my heart. I've lost more friends and loved ones than I can count to overdose. I've almost lost my own life to overdose. And it's to know that it's such a preventable thing with the availability of naloxone. It hurts. It hurts, Tia. It brings me back to the stigma that I faced growing up. The idea that, this doesn't happen in our community. I grew up in Rochester Hills, and the idea that, it happens in Detroit, it happens in Pontiac, but not in Rochester Hills, right? And that idea, the stigma, it keeps people sick. It keeps people from reaching out for help. It certainly made it harder for me to ask for help when I needed it.
And do you think because Rochester Hills and similar communities have a certain connection to affluency, I guess you can say, that there's this stigma that because of it, we those aren't problems that we encounter on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, 100%. In doing trainings in areas in Oakland County, I hear that exact sentiment of, oh, well, not my kids, not in my community, but I'm here to say yes, in your community, everywhere. You never know who might be struggling, a brother, a coworker. It could be anybody.
And just staying on this theme, whenever we're just watching shows or documentary or whatever it may be, and we'll see the comments or commentary of, well, you live in a big house in this fancy area, or they live here and they live there, they shouldn't have problems. Why would that be the case? So when you hear those thoughts, those comments, what goes through your mind?
I guess what goes through my mind is I've been there. I've been there, and I always try to figure out how can I get to this person, sharing my own story, sharing the stigma that I myself faced, even as somebody that was using substances in growing up in Rochester Hills. I had all of these preconceived notions, right? And so I can relate to when people have preconceived notions. Trying to get through to people is a big struggle in my day-to-day work.
We can go on this topic all day. But just getting back to overdose, what are some what to do's and what not to do's when you're in the steps of overdose? So
we always like to train people on the 5 steps to save a life. Step number 1 is we always want to shake and shout, right? We had talked about how to identify an overdose, and that's primarily the effect of the first step is trying to wake this person up to see if you know their name, you can shout their name. Step number 2, the next thing is to always call 911. During an opioid overdose, every second matters. Every second that person goes without breathing on their own could mean the difference between life or death. So getting EMS on scene as quickly as possible is paramount. Step number 3 is spraying the naloxone up. Typically, we distribute intranasal doses, but I know that they have different formulations. Primarily, the public will be will have intranasal doses available. Step number 4, we want to check their breathing and check their pulse. So it's stopping those signals from the brain that tells the lungs to breathe. Naloxone is going to work to reverse that. In the meantime, we can provide CPR or rescue breaths, whichever one is needed. And then step number 5, is it working? So naloxone can take 2 to 3 minutes to have an effect. If there's still no improvement after those first 2 to 3 minutes, we can administer a second dose of naloxone. And hopefully by that time, EMS has arrived. In the event that person's overdose is reversed, we can put them into the recovery position. And I always want to stress to approach that situation with care and compassion. This person's going to be terrified. They might not know how they got there. Something as a rescuer you can approach with care. Hey, you've had a medical event. Can I get you a water? Can I get you a blanket? EMS is on the way.
How do you administer Narcan safely or naloxone safely?
So naloxone is typically found in an intranasal spray. It'll come in a big cardboard box, and then there's typically 2 doses in each box. It comes in a blister pack, so you peel the back of the blister pack off and then remove the applicator. And it's administered very similarly to Afrin or Flonase. If you've ever administered any of those, you're 3 steps ahead of me right now. But Typically, you kind of hold the applicator, push it up as far as your fingertips will let you into that person's nostril, and push the plunger in, and it's going to spray that medication into their nose.
This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about International Overdose Awareness Day. My guest is Jonathan Maxgay, an overdose prevention specialist with the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. For those who may be afraid or may not understand how to handle themselves in an emergency situation, in what ways do you tell folks to calm themselves, I guess you can say?
So a super cool thing with naloxone is that it only has an effect if an opioid is present. So if I had naloxone sprayed into my nose right now, absolutely nothing would happen because I don't have any opioids in my system. It's perfectly safe if, in the event that you come across somebody and they are unconscious. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an EMT. If I am in an emergency situation, I'm not going to know what's going on with this person. I can always safely administer naloxone. In the event that this person is experiencing an overdose, naloxone will work to reverse that overdose. In the event that they've got something else medical going on, heart attack, stroke, diabetic emergency, naloxone will just have no effect. It saves lives.
That is really, I had no idea. And so for folks out there listening who may be a little nervous or hesitant, it will not harm you unless there's an opioid present. That's absolutely fascinating. Now, we talked a little bit about stigma, but I want to talk about just peer groups and recovery groups. Now, but is there a difference between a peer recovery group and like Alcoholics Anonymous? Are those two different things, or is it kind of similar?
They're kind of similar. Alcoholics Anonymous is a 12-step based recovery group, peer recovery group, whereas there's additional options for folks, right? At the Alliance, we host Smart Recovery meetings, which is it's an alternative to 12-step recovery. There's Recovery Dharma, all sorts of different recovery groups for folks out there that might feel they might feel like AA isn't for them.
And just thinking about the peer recovery groups that are around southeastern Michigan, if you could name a few that you all have partnered with or collabed with that people should know about who are doing this work on the ground.
Absolutely. So I mentioned Smart Recovery. We facilitate primarily virtual meetings, but I do have a Friday morning in-person meeting. You can always go to their website, smartrecovery.org, and see a list of meetings. And we host all sorts of meetings with the Alliance. We also have Resolve, which is a peer-led recovery skills building group for folks that are new to recovery, and kind of teaches mindfulness and meditation and all sorts of tools that people early on in recovery can use to cope without, drugs or alcohol.
And for families and community members and folks just like you and I, you were just saying, like, we're not doctors, we're not EMTs, we're just regular folks. How can we all just be better prepared as a community outside of making sure that we have naloxone kits with us? What are better ways that we can be prepared?
I think it starts, I think it goes back to stigma. I think really if you can see somebody who might be struggling and think that could be my mother, that could be my brother, that could be my child, because every single person that is struggling has a family. They have people that care about them. And at least speaking from my own personal experience, drug and alcohol use at the beginning was recreational, and it became at the end something that I didn't really want to do. It took over me and led me. I didn't have a choice in the matter at the end.
It took away your agency.
Absolutely.
Basically. It just took over. And you talked about the families and families being impacted as well. If you are comfortable with talking about your own personal story, what was the impact on your own family?
I'm very grateful that my family still supports me. They've always been supportive, and I've put them through quite a bit. All of the nights where they didn't know where I was, the times that money just went missing from their wallets. I'm so grateful for my mother, my father, my brothers, my extended family. Everybody in my family has always been extremely supportive of me. It's a blessing today to be able to spend time with them. I'm really grateful for that.
And before we get out of here, August 31st marks the 25th anniversary of International Overdose Awareness Day. What do you all have planned?
So the Alliance is hosting a 8-hour drive-up naloxone training in our parking lot. It's at 5505 Corporate Drive, Troy, Michigan, 48098, where the team members from the Alliance, we're going to be hanging out there. Everybody who attends will receive a naloxone kit. They'll be trained on how to identify an overdose and what to do in the event of an emergency. We'll have snacks and beverages available. So please come on down, hang out with us. It's going to be a blast.
Jonathan Maxgay is an overdose prevention specialist with the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. The Alliance of Coalition for Healthy Communities will host a drive-up naloxone training resource fair in Troy on August 31st. We'll have a link to that on wdet.org/metro. This is The Metro, and you can help shape the future of WDET. Our annual listener survey is open right now. And if you're listening and you haven't taken it yet, it's quick and it's anonymous. We're community powered here at WDET, and the listener survey lets us know what you like and what you'd like to see improved. Take the survey today at wdet.org/survey. That's wdet.org/survey. Now, coming up, overdose deaths are down in Michigan, but keeping people from using opioids in the first place is getting harder thanks to newer, stronger drugs. Wayne County's chief medical officer will share what's working and what still needs to be done. After that, we'll learn the ins and outs of the overdose reversal drug Narcan. Plus, we'll learn about the one-buck rule, which has deer hunters up in arms. Stay right there. We'll be right back. This is The Metro.